Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Melissa, but if you are one of my Bonnie subscribers and you've been following along, then you already know that you can call me Missy. January deceived me. I thought we were done with the cold weather, and yet here we are, still in winter, which is probably actually a good thing. Global warming is no joke. But because winter came back and it was aggressive, I thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and work on a project that would address a problem that I have with my winter wardrobe. And that is that most of my sleeves are like this, which is to say fabulous and billowy, which I love. But the problem is that most coats and sweaters and things don't accommodate fabulous sleeves. So after making my robe and finding that the ample sleeve that I put in that project works really well with my billowy sleeves, I thought I should probably make some kind of an outerwear project that I could wear out and about. And so that's what I'm gonna do. Now, I have given this project a little bit of thought before I decided to turn my camera on. So let me introduce you first to this kilt, which I purchased for $7.79 at the thrift store. Because that is pleated, there is a good amount of fabric there, but there's not a ton of fabric for me to make like a great big giant coat, especially if I want to make some nice big sleeves. So I'm looking at making some kind of a bolero style coat, jacket thing with this wool kilt. I don't know, the sleeve might be a bit big. Do I have to rethink everything? I have folded over the kilt and put my pattern sleeve on top of it, and looking at just the hem of this, I sincerely doubt that I would have enough of this kilt fabric to make what I have in mind. So I'm going to have to pivot. I do have other wool items that I can use for this, so worry not, the show will go on. First of all, I have this wool overcoat. I look like a refrigerator when I'm wearing it. I think I'd like to rework it eventually, but I like the fact that it goes so far down, and I'd like to preserve that in whatever I end up doing with it.
I stand by what I said about looking like a fridge, but why do I kind of like it now?
Not going to be used for this project. Then I had these two bundles of thrifted fabric. This is 100% wool based on my tests. And this is a wool poly blend also based on my tests, which leads me to what I'm actually going to end up using, which is this. This is also a wool coat, but as you can see, it is unfinished. I actually got this coat from my brother-in-law's grandmother, who had a friend in Boston, I think, but somewhere on the East Coast, that had to shut down a tailoring business that they had. And so they had a bunch of unfinished but already cut projects. And so she just gave me this one since she knew that I was interested in sewing. You might say, but this one also goes all the way down. Yeah, but there's also a lot less fabric to work with down there. So yeah, I'm probably going to use this to complete my project. Let's get to work.
Because the sleeves for this project are ample, I decided that I would need to use the bottom half of the coat for the sleeve portion, and I just verified that that would work before moving on to taking apart all of the pieces that have already been assembled into a coat shape. The lining was only attached to the outer shell by the collar, so that came apart pretty quickly, and then it was also pretty quick to unpick the sleeves. And of course, I had to take apart both the lining and the outer shell of the coat.
Well, I have the coat pieces all disassembled, and now my next move is going to be to use this pattern, this one on this side. I'm going to use those bodice pieces to create the top part of this bodice. That's my plan for now. We are going to pull those pieces apart and go from there.
One thing that's really distracting me that I need to address is the fact that I really like this outfit, but the skirt kept coming untucked from my corset thingy, and it just looks bad with it hanging underneath and all the fabric bunching.
Hello, new day. It is very snowy, so it would have been a great day to have had this finished already, but oh well. I've still got probably more winter coming, probably. And so I need to get working on this. Yesterday, I pulled out all of my pattern pieces and did just about nothing else. So I still have to cut out the sleeves, which I think I'll go ahead and do first today. One thing that made me nervous to continue yesterday was the fact that I noticed that this pattern is probably going to be too small on me. So I'm going to have to probably make a mock-up or two. If I make a mock-up and it's way, way off, then I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I may have to pivot and figure out some other idea for the body portion of this project. Maybe just using the pattern that the sleeves came from and figuring out how to make that work. So let's get cutting.
While I do ladylike things with my dress, I want to address the trash can that you can see in my studio in the background of some of these shots. I was dog sitting for my brother, and that is the trash can designated for dog food, just to keep it out of the way altogether. It's always held dog food. It's never held trash. You may also have been curious about that man in the background. That was my spouse. He's been in some of my other videos, but today he was in my studio reading to me from a fan fiction that we've been sharing and enjoying together. Okay, with all that out of the way, I'm going to explain what I just did, which is I had to adjust the size of the sleeves because they were just a little bit too wide for this coat. And what I did was I just traced the top and the bottom. I traced the bottom all the way to the edge and then the top all the way to the edge and just connected the edges at where they left off. After cutting the wool, of course, I also had to cut the lining out. So that's what I'm doing here. This was a busy day for cutting, and the next thing I had to cut was my mock-up pieces. So I went ahead and cut them out. Again, with the knowledge that I would probably have to adjust the pattern. So I have here my little mock-up. As I suspected, it was too small, and so I had to repair the back because it ripped when I was trying it on. But I'm going to try it on again, just to show you how it looks. Okay, there's one side. There we go. Okay. Howdy, partner. Obviously, it is way too small. Clearly, the armholes are going to need to be bigger, number one. Number two, as you can see, it doesn't come together in the front. It does right at the top, but further down, not so much. I need at least another 4 inches right there in the front. I'll probably want more than 4 inches because this being an overgarment, it needs to be a bit oversized to fit over everything, which is also why it's a good thing to just try it on over my dress. Let's see if I can get it off without tearing it this time. Oh, let's fix this. At this point, I was feeling a little bit less motivated to work, so I lit a candle, and it's funny, the little ambiance of just one lit candle really helps me get back in the mood for working. I'm not going to say that that trick works every time, but it also worked yesterday when I was halfway done with the dishes and didn't feel like doing it, lit a couple candles, and finished the dishes. But as you could see, I basically just traced my pattern pieces, added an inch or two to one side of it, and then cut them out again. So now, with my new pattern pieces, I went ahead and cut out yet another mock-up to sew together.
It's another new day. I've actually done my hair today and gotten dressed in something cute. So, you know, new day, new me, or refreshed me at least. I feel somewhat refreshed today. Anyways, I'm going off on a weird tangent. So, recapping where we are at, I have a mock-up made. I need to show you that. And I have my sleeves cut out of my final fabric, but I need to tell you something that I'm super excited about that is kind of taking this project in a new direction. It's the same project, but just like making it more complicated, which is actually not what I need right now. I need it to just be done because it's Friday and I'm trying to be done by Fridays, but that's not going to happen because I had a brainstorm. I was scrolling through Pinterest and I saw an image, and I would put the image here, but I couldn't find it again because I saw the image and I was so excited by it that I immediately got out of Pinterest and started looking up pictures of pigeons. Now let me explain what the picture was. It was a bolero similar to this. I think, again, if I had the image, I could show you. But the sleeves were similar to the sleeves that I'm doing on this. They were wider sleeves. And it was black and it had embroidery on it, just in the shape of the outline of feathers. Now I think you can see where I'm going. This beautiful bolero was made to look like there were feathers down the sleeves, and so your arms were kind of like wings, and it was just so whimsical and cute. But I'm like, I'm working with not black fabric, but gray fabric. So my first initial thought was pigeon, and now I'm wearing pins that are thematic to this idea. So let me show you the sketch that I did in my book of dumb ideas. Here it is. Pigeon wings. I'm not 100% certain on all of the design elements of this thing, but I'm really excited by the possibilities of this. So that means that I'm going to need to get all of my pieces cut out, and then I'm going to need to embroider them today. So we need to make sure that my mock-up is finalized so that I know that my final piece will be worthy of this pigeon idea. You know, a girl just wants to go out looking like a pigeon in the winter. Okay, first I'm going to put this sweater on to show you the spaciousness of this design. I don't know about the sleeves. I did try the sleeve onto the design just with the lining, and it worked, but I don't know how well the top of the sleeve will accommodate a sweater like this. As you can see, it has some nice, big, glorious sleeves, as I've spoken about at the beginning of this video. Let me see if I can find, where's my mock-up? There it is. I don't like the collar on this. That'll have to change because I just kind of invented one without knowing what I'm actually doing, which is, you know, story of my life, but that's why we make a mock-up. As you may have noticed in that sped up portion of me putting this on, this side went on a lot easier than this side. And that is because I have already cut some alterations into this side. So if I'm wearing this, you can see it's pulling a lot at the shoulder, and over here, there's still a little bunching and pulling. I don't know how to fix that. I'm not like a professional or anything, but you can see that there's less pulling. See, more pulling, less pulling. That's because I made the sleeve over here, the sleeve hole over here, bigger already. I did also draw some chalk lines because I wanted it to just be at the top. So basically, it could be sort of like this, or it could go further up and around, or it could go further down and around. And I need to make that decision quickly before I continue with my whole idea. I also need to figure out what this collar is doing. But with all that said, I've obviously got my work not yet cut out for me. I need to get my work cut out for me. So let's get to it.
I stood in front of the mirror to make some decisions about the shape, but I was still struggling, so I moved on to the collar. Okay, so here we have it. I just made a strip. I just cut a strip of fabric to be the collar. I think I like this much better because I sewed it in this way. I can't see how this collar kind of sits and fits. I'm not taking the time to finish a collar on my mock-up. Not with the pigeon greatness that we have coming our way. That's kind of more what it would look like. I like just the strip. I need to go ahead and make the changes that I've made to my mock-up in my pattern pieces. You can see what those changes look like as I'm doing it. And then we will worry about the rest of this stuff. So let's just keep on keeping on. And so I took apart my mock-up so that I could retrace those armholes so that they would be the correct size, and also trace out what my decision ended up being for the shape of the front of the bodice.
As you can see, maybe all of my messes are pushed a little bit to the side. Perhaps if you have a keen eye, you may recognize that my room is a disaster. I've just been throwing everything everywhere to the point where I almost don't even know what's what in here right now. So I think I need to clean it up because I'm feeling a little manic right now. And I think that when I'm in this state, I need to have my space be a little bit more clean and organized so that I can make it a mess again. So let's just do a quick tidy up, and then I will cut all of these pieces out.
If you look to the right of my head, you can see a couple colors of silk fabric there, and I was toying with the idea of using those to line the collar, but I ended up deciding to use just a gray velvet to line the inside of the collar because this is a very scratchy wool. I think I've already mentioned that, and so I really needed some kind of lining for that collar. Now, I recognize that I've gotten back to work, and at this point the room actually looks messier, but it's an organized mess, and that's what I needed. And now for a bit of silliness.
A treasure chest.
Wait. Not a mimic.
There's a tome.
What does it say?
It appears to be written in ancient High Millennial.
Can you translate that?
Ancient High Millennial isn't exactly my specialty, but I do have some notes on ancient High Millennial that can help me if I get stuck. I should be able to get the gist of it so we can understand. Thank you. All right. If thou hast unboxed this arc of centuries, that's not quite right. Cask of hours, capsule of time, I think. And thou art not a child of the 9th decade, then thy knowledge shall be lacking, and I am sorely grieved on thy behalf. But if thou didst drink of the green snake, and behold that golden age of the monsters who dwelt in pockets, and the Polly who dwelt also in pockets, and of Lisa the Forthright, with her chromatic keeper of snares that all did envy and desire, then shalt thou know and understand also the value of these treasures. I'm not sure that makes much sense at all. The author does seem to think that we would struggle to understand any of that, so.
Okay.
For herein lies a terminal of frivolity of the first generation. Okay, some kind of mechanical device. A collection of tomes containing the tales of Harry the Potter, also of the first printing to be had by youth in the provinces united of America. Some kind of storybooks for children. Also, DVDs of the newly harvested Prince of Bel-Air, that relic of a time before William smote the rock of Chris. The final item thou shalt find herein is a relic of mine own hand. A segment, no, I think in this context, it's a garment, which shall give unto thee the appearance of flight like unto purgatory.
The appearance of flight?
That's what it seems to say. More roughly translated, it's you'll look fly as hell. Perhaps a magic item, one that grants the wearer the appearance of flight. I'm not sure how useful that is.
There are wizards who can put spells into items. Try it on.
Do I look like I'm flying?
No, not yet.
Maybe I have to flap my arms? How about now?
I mean, you look like you're trying to fly.
But no magical appearance of flight?
No.
Huh.
Maybe there's more instructions, an incantation or something?
It cuts off here, and then on the next page it says simply, hungry, hungry himbos. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. It looks like a random note. Ah, it continues on this page. Oh, it just says, thinkest thou not that it is a slay, like to kill?
You don't think this is one of those cursed items?
Maybe we need to make a sacrifice to the 9 hells of Battar in order to activate its powers?
It's possible, but generally I've found that items that need to be activated with a sacrifice, or they come with some drawbacks.
We may as well try. All the rest of this stuff is junk.
You, goblin!
This has been a bit of silliness. Now back to the video.
My battery died, so I took the opportunity to, while it was charging, go ahead to the sewing store and pick up some sewing items. And it turns out that they're moving, so a lot of their stuff was on sale. Still ended up spending $58, but this is what I got. First of all, I got this quilting foot, freeform moving foot, so that I can do that embroidery, hopefully, all over the sleeves and everything. I picked up these hooks that would be nice for that center closure. I think these will look really nice with the whole concept of this design. I got these iridescent buttons because I thought that the colors that they iridesce, they look like pigeon colors. Finally, I grabbed some threads. I've got this purple, this cream, very light gray, this teal, and a black. Now that I have all of that stuff, I need to finish cutting out my pieces and then I can start the embroidery process. So let's get to work.
By now, I was sick of cutting out the same pattern pieces again and again, and so I decided to double up my fabric, and that meant that I wanted to pin everything in place to make sure that things didn't shift while I was cutting, so that I got some nice, clean, more exact cuts. I have all of my pieces cut out now. I have this. I need to sew the darts into this. And then with the sleeves, I need to, and this, both this and the sleeves, I need to go ahead and iron down these seams so that when I go to do my freeform, when I get grooving with my freeform sewing stuff to make all of the embroidery details, then I'll have like a nice flat canvas surface, whatever you want to call it, to work with. So here I go. Gotta get this going. My chalk marks for my darts are on the wrong side of the fabric. Pumpkin, tomato. I like calling it a pumpkin. I just think it's cuter. Isn't it cuter, pumpkin? These pumpkins are cuter than tomatoes. I guess tomatoes are cute enough in their own way, but like, they're not tasty. Pumpkins don't really have a wealth of flavor either. Not all on their own. You add some good spices and pumpkin can be quite nice, but you gotta add them herbs and spices and stuff. I guess the question that Bear's asking right now is, are you team pumpkin or team tomato? Comment down below. Darts sewn, time to press everything.
Here they are, all ironed up And now I have to start drawing on with some chalk the designs that I want to use my new embroidery foot on. Before I get started on that, though, I think maybe I should do some test runs with some scrap that I've got here. So yeah, let's do some test runs first.
I recognize that throughout this video, I kind of alternate between using the lav mic and using the mic on my camera. And honestly, that's partly for convenience sake, but also partly because I'm not sure yet whether I prefer the sound coming from the lav mic or just from the camera microphone. So let me know if you have a preference. Anyways, back to what's going on screen. I did the first feather, the first really long feather with my new freeform foot, and then I realized that because those feathers are so long, it would actually be a lot easier to use my regular sewing foot for that part. So I reattached my regular sewing foot just to do the outlines of the long feathers, and then I went back with the freeform foot to go in and add all of the feathery details. I also realized as I was sewing that the regular chalkboard chalk that I had used to draw in all of the feathers kept coming undone while I was sewing. So I had to kind of just go back and redraw those every time I came to a new section. A couple other things that I noticed that just helped to make this whole process easier were using that embroidery hoop that you saw me using. It made it a lot easier to keep the fabric tight as I was trying to move it around underneath the needle. And it was also helpful to just roll up and clip the fabric that I wasn't actively working on out of the way so that I didn't end up accidentally sewing bits of it to other bits of it, which I did do a couple of times.
Since it's another day, it's time for another update. So here's what I've got. First of all, I got all of the black embroidery on both of the sleeves. As you can see, there's a bit of a gap, and I've got some cream colored thread that I'm going to use to fill in those feathers. Then this is the front side piece. So that is going to, oh, that's the wrong side. So these are the front side pieces. They're going to have just a little bit of feathers under the arm. It's going to be something similar on the back pieces, and then I'll be all set with the black thread, and then I need to move on to the cream thread, and then of course the purple and teal threads. So that's a lot of work. There are a couple issues that I haven't figured out what's going on, and maybe if I watched a couple YouTube videos before doing this, I might have been able to figure this out, but I don't think I'm going to have time to really troubleshoot at all. So I'm just going to keep plowing ahead and hope for the best. But one of those is, if you look at the backs of these, you can see how the threads snag. I'm not sure what causes that because it doesn't happen continuously. And then on the front, there are a few places where the threads are really loose. And where the threads are really loose, you can just kind of pull. And as you can see, that's a problem. In my opinion, that's a problem. How I'm fixing that problem is basically I just thread that through a needle and then push the head of that needle through the fabric in order to push that snag into the other side. So I'm just going to keep on plowing ahead, and we'll see where this gets us.
In hindsight, as I'm editing, I'm thinking that perhaps the issue with the snagging and just the thread tension not being completely correct, I think that's one part, just me going a little too slow as I'm working. But I think the other part of the problem is the fact that for my bobbin thread, I'm using just a thin polyester, whereas the top thread is a thicker cotton. If I had used the same thread for the top and the bottom, I think that might have helped with some of those issues. I don't know for sure. Anyways, this is where I switch over to using the lighter colored thread. And I did say something in between the black and the white thread, but I can't remember what I said. And I didn't record it because I had my lav mic plugged in, but forgot that it was plugged in, so there was no audio. Which just goes to show that if I choose to use the lav mic more consistently, that I'm going to need to learn to keep that in mind when I'm using it. Anyways, the process with the white thread goes a lot quicker, partly because the feathers are smaller, and partly because I just developed a workflow through doing the black thread. I have all of my decorative embroidery stuff done to my satisfaction, at least, sort of. I don't know. Anyways, look at that. I love it. I think it looks really cool. I like how actually the purple is a little more on the subtle side. I just think that it gives it a little bit more of that essence of shimmer.
Essence of Shimmer by Victoria's Secret.
It did come out, it did make the whole thing a little crinkly. I don't know if you can tell. I'm not sure about that. I'm gonna see if maybe I can iron it flat and maybe I'll be able to get it flat again. But other than that, I'm ready to start assembling. So I'm gonna get on that. As you can see here, the ironing did help a lot. That first part was post-ironed, and then you can see this bottom half of the sleeve has not yet been ironed. And so I'm really happy that ironing it out actually worked very well. And it was so satisfying to go from this lumpy, bumpy fabric to nice and smooth. If ironing this had not worked, I would have been so disappointed in the ultimate outcome of this project. And with everything ironed beautifully flat, I was ready to get back in front of the sewing machine and assemble all of my pieces. And when I was ready for it, I realized that I had not yet cut out my lining fabric, so I had to do that.
Today is hopefully the last day that I need to work on this bolero. The pieces are all sewn together. Also, I was up late last night and I sewed together the lining. So today, all I really need to do is assemble this thing. I have pinned the collar to the inside and also pinned down where I want the front of the bolero to end. I have a few extra inches here that aren't going to be used, also at the collar. Then I need to hem everything up and sew the lining in and we'll be all set. So I gotta get to work on that.
I just cut down the collar. I decided that I wanted it to have a rounded edge. I'm gonna need to cut some lining. So I think I'm gonna stick with this gray velvet. Hope that it looks nice. And honestly, it's just because I was so sick of cutting things out that I'm cutting this out so late in the game. But that's the very last thing that I had to cut out. So woohoo, we're on the home stretch. Okay, I'm trying to finish this collar part. And what I have so far here is I've got the body of the jacket. Then the next layer is the wool collar. And then the next layer is some velvet inner lining. I don't know. My brain is, I'm drawing a blank for some reason, but like some of the velvet just to line the inner front part. Then I've got my lining all pinned in place. the lining of the collar is not tucked in there. That's gonna come down and fold under. So I've got one side. Now I've got to do the other side, and then I just need to pin everything down. So here I go. The dog is here with me. Say hi. Say hi, Oso. Say hi. Oh, I should probably clean up so you have a little more space, huh? Yeah, I should clean up my stuff, huh? So there's space for the dogs. Yeah. So yeah, that was my brother's dog. He is a very good boy, and I do enjoy having him when they need somebody to dog sit. All right, so here I am at my ironing board. The only place that I really need these to be same is right in the front. I think I'm gonna use my thumb to measure out the distance of the hem. So it's just gonna be about as wide as my thumb all the way around. And I think that's a good hem size. I don't know, it's maybe like 3/4 of an inch is what it ends up coming out to. So I'm just gonna do that all the way around, press it down with my iron, and then we'll go from there. I do know that a finger is not a standard unit of measurement, but it actually works pretty well when you're sewing. It's a trick that my mom and my abuelita used in their sewing. And I like to think of it as the sewing equivalent of when you learn how to cook from someone who doesn't use a recipe and instead goes entirely off of eyeballing, kind of pinching the ingredients with their fingers and taste testing as they go. And how I ended up hemming everything was by doing a zigzag stitch to protect the raw edges of the wool and also the lining. And then I folded it up once and tacked it in place with an invisible stitch, which meant I had to hand stitch everything. And then folding the lining down and stitching it to the edge of the wool fabric. I don't actually have any footage of the first half of what I just described because I filmed it and then it said that the chip was corrupted that I used to film it on. So I just lost that footage. But the thing that I like about hand stitching is that I'm able to take the project with me wherever I go. So wherever I think that I'm going to have a moment to just stop and work on it, I took it with me.
Here we are. I am really happy with how this turned out. Between filming the making of this bolero and filming the reveal footage that you just saw, it has been a couple of weeks and I've worn it out a few times and I've noticed some head turns, and I'm not sure if those are complimentary head turns or just like weirded out head turns, but honestly it doesn't matter because I feel cool and confident when I wear it, and that's all that matters to me, honestly. Something about the way that the breast of this and the collar work together, I feel adds to the pigeonness of it. I'm not sure why that is, but I'm here for it. A couple of little critiques. A little bit of itchiness does come through this lining material. So if I had known that that would happen, maybe I would have used different lining. But for the most part, I'm going to be wearing it over long sleeves. I'm not right now. I was earlier. And the small amount of itch that I can feel doesn't bother me too much. So I'm okay with that. The other critique item that I have for this is just the way that the lining shows up. Not when I do this. This is like, it's a wide sleeve, so you're bound to see some lining. I think that a thicker cuff would have helped, but then a thicker cuff would have meant that I feel the itchy more. So, but what does bother me about that is just that when I'm wearing a long sleeve item, then the friction of the lining against the long sleeve pulls the lining forward out beyond the edge of the cuff. It would be worse if the lining was too short, because then that would cause some odd bunching in the sleeve. But I just wish that the lining wasn't as visible as it is. So yeah, overall, I am thrilled with how this project turned out. And honestly, this is far better than my first conception of this idea. Anyways, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching to this point. If you liked anything about that video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you would like to see more of what I do, go ahead and subscribe. And if you'd like to see if you can help out my channel in any other way, it always helps to leave a little comment for the algorithm. This time you can add a little pigeon emoji, or maybe a feather or a wing. I don't know. And if you have done all of those things, then maybe we'll see each other again sometime. But until then, bye. Look, a treasure chest. Look, a treasure chest. There it is. Oh, it has to have the light in it now. Okay. Making messes. Why do I get so flirty at the end? How do you like that pigeon makeup thing?
Here it is. It's okay. It's all right.
Don't. Or oot and a boot for my Canadian friends. I'm sorry. Ta 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 ta. Ta 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 ta.